Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 ISCO Championship Full Show. That's right, research, data, and DFS all crammed into one night for the alternate field event in Louisville, Kentucky this week. In fact, in pretty much my backyard, as I live in a suburb of Louisville. So it's quite an exciting time around here. But we have a lot to cover. As I just mentioned, we have 3 shows crammed into one, so let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I post research regarding the tournament of the week, course information with 2 tournaments and not a lot of data regarding or surrounding them. I didn't do anything in terms of research, but never fear, I will definitely have something for the Open Championship next week. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show, so that'll come out tomorrow evening after the Scottish Open DFS Tactics show. You want to see the players I'm wagering and I'm using most often in my lineups, go give me a follow over at X. Then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Can't recommend it enough. If you're subscribed to his article, you'll know that he sends out his deluxe version every Wednesday with his top plays, his value plays, players he likes, doesn't like, and his projected ownerships. So you really are missing out. If you aren't subscribed to that article, make sure you're doing that, and go follow him over on social media, because that is where we place our detailed write-ups for the 2025 Picks Challenge that resumes this week. So looking forward to that. So make sure you're giving him a follow over there as well. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. How much do you know of Hurstbourne Country Club? Who do you think the favorite is this week in this alternate field, and quite frankly, very weak field? Any DP World Tour players that you are aware of that you might want to shout out? If you have any Scottish Open questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those, but I'm trying to stick to the ISCO this evening since tonight is dedicated to the ISCO. But I won't turn away any questions regardless. So feel free to jump into chat and make your thoughts and opinions heard. If you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's do the research, the data, and the DFS, the entirety of the week, crammed into one night for the ISCO Championship. And we are going to start, as we always do, generally on a Sunday evening, but in our research with the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Now, this tournament used to be held at Keene Trace in Nicholasville, Kentucky, which is right outside Lexington. It has moved to Hurstbourne Country Club in Louisville, Kentucky. I have not played this course. It is a private club. I have not played this course. So I don't have any first-hand knowledge, but we will go through the course details here in a moment. Hurstbourne Country Club was originally a Chick Adams design, renovated very recently to get ready for the ISCO Championship. So no architect filter in Fantasy National. Hurstbourne Country Club for members is a par 72. For the PGA Tour this week, they are playing it as a par 70. I'll get into some of those changes. Sorry, as I center this camera, I'll get into some of those changes as we go through this evening. But this is a traditional par 70. 4 par 3s, 2 par 5s, measuring little over 7,000 yards, 7,056 yards. So it's not a long course. And if it were to play to the members par at par 72, it'd be a very, very short course. But they've converted 2 of the par 5s into par 4s this week at Hurstbourne. So kind of a short course. Again, a little bit misleading since it is a par 70. But 4 par 3s, 2 par 5s. The greens are A1, A4 bent. This is the only course per the GCSAA that specifically has A1, A4. But we are going to be looking at bent grass putting tonight for the ISCO Championship. There are no collars around the green. It is all green or rough. And we have Zoysia fairways. And I mention this a lot when we're out west, specifically with Zoysia, that it is a tricky grass to play if players aren't used to it. It's stickier. It makes it a little bit more different to chip. I don't want to say it's easier or more difficult or anything like that. It's just different. Players have made comments like that in the past at various venues with Zoysia. The rough is the same kind of mix that we've seen throughout the Midwest and into the summer months, this bluegrass and fescue mix. What's interesting is that they have it listed as high as 6 inches at some places. I would imagine that is the fescue portion, but very long rough around Hurstbourne Country Club. Some other notable things about the course: small greens, really small greens, 4,750 square feet. I believe they are the third smallest on tour this season, behind Pebble Beach and Harbor Town. So very, very small greens. 25 acres of fairway. That's a little bit misleading, as the average fairway width is 25 to 30 yards. That's, right at average, maybe just a little bit wider than average on the PGA Tour. So we're not dealing with, ribbon-like fairways. There is plenty of fairway here. Quite a bit of rough. 68 bunkers, 6 holes with water in play. There are numerous hazards, 1 creek, but 6 holes with water in play. A couple of notes, and I can back this up a little bit. Living in the area, the spring was pretty cool for this area of the country, unseasonably cool, and it was wet. We had a lot of rain this spring, so it says that they've had to deal with some challenging circumstances. I'm pretty sure this is still going to be as fast and as firm as they want it to be, considering the weather we've had here in Louisville the past week or so. So there's a look at Hurstbourne Country Club from a GCSA tournament fact sheet standpoint. The key takeaways: traditional par 70, shorter course, shorter par 70 with bent greens. My guess is they're going to be fast, but because we've never seen this course, I can't speak to it. I can't guarantee it. My guess would be that they're fast, but they are small, very small, bent greens. Enough fairway. Some of them might be a little bit narrow in places, but overall, wide enough fairways for these professionals. 6 holes with water in play. Nothing to do with the architect. This is a Chick Adams design. So with that, normally in the research portion of a show, we go to Fantasy National. Instead, I'm going to close this out. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the forecast for the ISCO Championship and Hurstbourne. We are expected to get some rain tomorrow, which could soften the course up a little bit. I'm going to tell you now, though, it's been fairly dry around here for about a week and a half, with the exception of one shower. It was either Sunday or yesterday. Days are kind of running together. But we got a shower Sunday or Monday. Other than that, it's been pretty dry all the way back to last week. So nothing. We're not worried about any soft conditions or ball in hand or anything like that. But we are seemingly looking at some rain tomorrow and maybe on Friday evening. But considering we don't have Friday's super forecast, we're not going to be able to really determine if there's a wave advantage. And based on this, I would not suspect there is. Looks very calm both Thursday and Friday. Pretty pleasant. All things considered, high in the mid 80s Thursday, maybe touching 90 on Friday. But it is a warm front coming through, as the weekend is going to be brutally hot, at least for this area of the country. 95 on Saturday, low 90s on Sunday. The only wind we are projected to have looks to be on Saturday, and it looks like everybody is dealing with that. So I don't think we're going to have any delays on Friday night. If we do, it would cause perhaps the Friday PM to be at a disadvantage, considering the wind that's supposed to be coming behind this rain. But I'm not factoring in any wave advantage in my considerations this week for the ISCO. Just play the players you think are going to play the best this week, regardless of their tee time. All right, with that, we are going to go now and take a look at Hurstbourne from Pro Visualizer. And again, remember that this is a brand new course. So we are going to be examining this with, I don't want to say a whole lot of scrutiny. We're just going to try and get a general feel how we think Hurstbourne's going to play. I certainly have my assumptions, but we'll see. Do note that the nines are flipped for the championship. So even though we're on hole 1 here, I'm actually going to go to hole 10, as that's the first hole of the tournament. This is a 515-yard par 4. It says par 5 here. This has been converted to a long par 4. Creek running all along the right side of the hole. A drive that you can get aggressive, but if you hit it too far, you're in the bunkers. To a long approach to a green protected by this same creek on the left. And again, these greens are really, really small, so iron play already seems pretty paramount here at Hurstbourne. But I don't see any trees, or very, very few trees. So looks pretty wide open, at least to start the course. Long iron into green, pretty well protected. Hole 2, I know it says 11. Again, the nines are flipped here for the championship, for the ISCO championship. Short par 4, 396. In fact, I meant to have a spreadsheet or document open, so don't mind me as I get that up very quickly. And I'll bring it off to the side over here for when we need to take a look at that. Hole 2, pretty nondescript, slight dogleg left. A drive of 285, which is actually really short for professionals. So I would imagine majority of your professionals are going to fly this bunker. Looks like there are some scarce trees pushed away from the fairway, so it doesn't look like they should be in play unless you are the most wayward of wayward drivers. But a very short wedge into a green, a pretty nondescript hole there. We move to hole 12, long par 4, very straight. Again, not a whole lot to it. Just hit a good tee ball with a mid to long iron into a green. Again, protected front and back by bunkers. I did it myself. I said 13, hole 4, very short par 4, 360. Players are going to have to choose if they're going to challenge the bunker and carry it, or lay up into what's probably a safer landing zone. I would imagine a lot of bigger hitters will challenge this bunker, because even if you land in the bunker, it's still a very, very short wedge in. So right off the bat, first 3 or 4 holes here, I'm seeing distance be a determining factor. Considering if you have the distance to carry this bunker, it's a huge advantage. The previous hole, it's hole 11. Fly this bunker here, leaves you a very, very short wedge in. Even the converted par 5 will reward length, so long as you're not wayward right. So I'm seeing distance being a pretty big factor, at least the visual view I'm getting of Hurstbourne. Very short par 4 here to a green, quite protected, but if players are in this area here, there's pretty good scoring chance. Hole 5, dogleg left, but it does look like it is, I can't say a forced layup, as this marker here is 300. So long as the player isn't terribly far right, looks like they have a, for professionals, easy approach into a green. I don't think this water will come into play off the tee. This is probably, 330, 340. So only the biggest of big hitters might have to hit 3-wood. But again, looks like a decent scoring opportunity for these professionals. Long par 3, the 6th, 237. Again, no trees, no water protecting the green, just a couple of bunkers. These greens are small. I can't tell you about the undulation. I've not played the course, but I don't think they're terribly undulating. So, just a long par 3, step up, hit a good long iron, and get your par, what is probably going to be one of the tougher holes on the course. Hole 7, true par 5 at 560. Creek all down the right. So I'm seeing, again, another theme here. So long as players aren't losing their tee shots to the right, they should be fine. But pretty straight away, par 5 here will get attacked in 2. Players will just bail left to avoid the water. But again, to another small green that is protected on the left. So that's why I think the speed of the greens is going to be pretty crucial. I think they're going to be fast, but I can't guarantee it. But if for example this green is really quick, then missing left could be dangerous. But we'll have to see. Hole 8, I will say semi-drivable. It's listed at 345, but looks like a player is going to have to draw it around maybe a couple of scarce trees here. But a semi-drivable par 4, and again, for professionals, being in this greenside front bunker here, not going to be an issue. So another good scoring opportunity, seemingly. Very unique finish to the front 9 here. Par 3 to finish the front 9, and it's actually going over a road. So quite interesting there. Now this would be normally the 18th. So quite an interesting way to finish a round of golf with a par 3. But for the ISCO, they have flipped the 9s. So this is the 9th, 183 mid iron to a green, protected by bunkers. This might be a false front or runoff, but nothing too spectacular there, I don't think. We moved to hole 10, or I'm sorry, let's do that. Move to hole 10. This is a true par 5 at 570. Again, just slight dog leg left. Tee shot 300 in between the bunkers. So I'm seeing distance, seeing quite a bit of approach play. I'm like we did with Keen Trace. I'm targeting ball strikers this week for the ISCO. Again, this green will get attacked into, or this par 5 will get attacked into. A little bit of protection here on the left with the pond, but you have to be very wayward to find that. So just a scoring opportunity there on 10. Probably one of the more difficult holes on the course, hole 11, 490-yard par 4, but it is somewhat of a forced layup, as this, cannot be driven. This is probably 360 or 370 to carry off the tee. So players are laying up to about 280 to 290, and are left with a 200-plus approach into a green, again, protected in the front. And with the rough being what the GCSAA said, 4 to 6 inches, like around the green, at least for this hole, could be challenging. So something to maybe think about. I'm not sure how much I'm going to factor in around the green. I'm more focused on the ball striking, but at least for this hole, I imagine this is going to be one of the more difficult holes on the course with this, somewhat forced layup drive or 3-wood to a very long iron. For second shot into hole 11. 12, very short par 3. We've got a few short par 3s here. Dogleg right. This drive here says 300. Bigger hitters, I'm going to tell you, are going to go after this bunker or try to carry this bunker, because if they're in the bunker, it still only leaves them with about a 90-yard bunker shot. That is not difficult for professionals. That would be death for me, but not difficult for professionals. So these professionals are going to try to carry this bunker and leave themselves with just I'll say a flip wedge, but a very, very short approach into this green. 13, par 3, 186. Fairly nondescript, just green protected by bunkers there. Hole 4, again, a dog leg left. So if players can maybe draw it around this tree, this is why I think a length is going to be a pretty big deal, because there's no trees to protect here right next to the tee box. So the bigger hitters can just try to fly this tree and leave themselves with an extremely short iron in, because this white mark here is at 285. So you think about like 300. If you carry the tree, it's probably around in here. Players that are drawing it around the tree or just flat carrying it over the tree can leave themselves with, again, a very, very short wedge into a green protected by bunkers on the right. So I consider this a pretty good scoring opportunity, because I don't think many professionals are going to lay up. I think they're going to challenge this tree here. 15. This water's not in play. A dogleg left, or at least a snaking or a fairway that circumvents a pond here. Your approach shot's going to have to carry the water, obviously. So any front pin any front pin or technically left pin is going to be a challenge this week. But this is maybe another slight forced layup, because this white mark here is at 275. I don't think many players are going to try and push it to 300 since the fairway narrows significantly. But even if you only hit 3 wood or even 5 wood at 275, you're only left with 107 in to the middle of the green. So again, another great scoring opportunity. Hole 16, mid-length par 4, straightaway par 4. Only trouble is left with a fairway bunker. Again, to a green that's protected by just a couple of bunkers. 17, long par 3, 220. Fairly straightforward, seemingly. All kind of depends on the undulation and contouring and speed of these greens, which we just haven't seen before. So I'm just not certain. But long par 3, and then finally the 18th is a converted par 5. So this is a par 4 at 500 yards. Probably, again, one of the tougher holes on the course. Basically a 90-degree turn off the drive. Hit to 290 here. If players want to get aggressive, try to get into this area here and carry this bunker. Leaves them with a little bit short of an approach. But either way, they've got a mid to long iron approach into this green that's fairly well protected with some bunkers here. But that's a look at Hurstbourne from a pro visualizer standpoint, an overview, if you will. The key takeaways that I got from this as I went through it this week, yesterday and today. So long as players are not spraying their tee shots right consistently, or on the holes that it's mandated, distance seems like it's going to be a pretty big deal. Iron play seems like it's going to be a pretty big deal. I'm not very confident that around the green is going to matter too much. So that's what I took away from this map view of Hurstbourne. We'll close that, but feel free to jump into chat. See what do you think from that Pro Visualizer flyover? How do you think the course is going to play? This is the hole yardages. And I got this from the PGA Tour, so this won't match Pro Visualizer, but this is the official scorecard. This is the course composition chart that is normally in Fantasy National, but since we have not seen Hurstbourne Country Club, this is brand new, so there's no data in Fantasy National. The par 3s, very, very well evenly split. We've got one short, one mid-length, one long, and one very long par 3. So any par 3 focus would be just in total par 3s, since they're evenly split. We do have what I would call that semi-drivable par 4. It was, I think, 345 or 348, but you had to draw it around a tree and perhaps carry a tree. So it is semi-drivable, but we've got a lot. I mean, a plethora of short par 4s. 4 of the 12 par 4s fall from 350 to 4. 3 more fall from 400 to 450. So 7 of the 12 par 4s measure less than 450 yards. So it seems that a lot of these professionals are going to have a lot of wedges in their hand this week at the Hurstbourne Country Club. A few 450 to 500, and the majority of these 450 to 500 par 4s were like 490, 480, so they're on the longer end of that. We do have the one converted par 5 that is measuring right at 500 yards. So we do have a decent mix of long and short par 4s, and kind of feels like the Rocket Mortgage or Rocket Classic, excuse me, Detroit, in some regards, considering they had 4 from 350 to 4 and 4 from 450 to 500. So I can see this playing very similarly to Detroit Golf Club in that regard, which also means I think it's going to be pretty darn easy. And then the 2 par 5s both measure in between 550 and 600, but they're very short, or on the shorter end of this. They're both in the 550 range. So they could very well drop under 550 if they move tees and pins. But there is a look at the course composition chart that is normally in Fantasy National. Now this is estimated proximity per Pro Visualizer. The 2 par 5s, I assumed, are getting attacked in 2, so they are here. But we have, like I mentioned, several short par 4s around Hurstbourne, so I could see a lot of wedges in these players' hands. And then there are, 2, maybe 3 par 4s that require a 200 plus approach. Not to mention the par 3s, 237. I think there was a 212 or 215 or something around there. So there's a good mix of wedges and long irons here at Hurstbourne, seemingly. But we'll have to see how the tournament plays out, particularly statistically Monday next week. So there's a look at the course composition and estimated proximities. I'll be honest with you right now, I didn't do much with proximities because we've never seen this course. We can make some inferences, but we really just don't know. All right, I'm going to close that. We'll now go to Fantasy National just very quickly in terms of a data dive. It's going to be very, very quick, considering we've never seen Hurstbourne. We can take some educated guesses as to how it plays, but my assumption is it's going to be pretty darn easy. That's where I'm at this week in my thought process. So when rounds are easy relative to par, the past year and a half, I am going back to 2024 to make sure some players, like these DP World Tour players, they might have some data if they came over and played, or from the Scottish Open that was considered easy last year. Your top performers when rounds have been easy in the field for the ISCO: Kevin Roy, Hayden Springer, Chan Kim, Michael Thorbjornsen, Chris Ventura, Bo Hostler, Kevin Chappell, Maximilian Kiefer, Saying You'll Know, and Rico Hoey. And then something else we can look at. This course is 7,056 yards, so it is fairly short. Your top performers on short courses in the field this week at the ISCO: Mark Hubbard, Patrick Fishburne, Chandler Phillips, Kevin Roy, Frankie Sapan, Carson Young, Chan Kim, Justin Lauer, Paul Peterson, and Bo Hostler. That's really kind of all we're going to do in terms of a data dive, especially since we've never seen this course. So I think it's a pretty good segue to just go into the mixed condition model and see how I'm going to, how I envision Hurstbourne playing. We're going to start with 15% off the tee when rounds are easy. There's a few holes where you have to be fairly mindful to not spray it right, seemingly. But otherwise, I just want to see the biggest hitters. So I have 10% in distance, 15% off the tee. I'm just focused on a lot of ball striking, and a lot of that is in off the tee. 25% in approach. I think guys are going to have to give themselves a lot of opportunities. As you see here, 15% opportunities. Guys are going to have to be very good with their irons, because I think it's going to be really, really easy this week at Hurstbourne. I could see a winning score in the mid-20s. So players are going to have to give themselves a lot of opportunities. They're going to have to convert them. That's why I'm looking at birdies or better when it's easy, because I do think those 2 par 5s are going to yield a few eagles. Only 5% putting. I'm looking at bent. If I if I wanted to make the assumption, I would put fast bent, but we just don't know. So I'm just looking at bent, but I'm not putting a whole lot of weight into it. As you can see, I really just am focused on the ball striking. Talked about the distance. It does appear like distance is going to be very beneficial here. Good drives, so long as players are hitting fairways or they're good enough to hit the green from the rough. So I put a whole lot into off the tee and approach. 15% off the tee, 10% distance, 15% good drives, 25% approach, 15% good drive, 15% opportunities. Like, I'm just wanting to see who the best ball strikers are, and then if we have any bent specialists, might consider them as well. So that's how I see Hurstbourne playing. Didn't factor in any around the green. If this course isn't easy, overwhelmingly easy, I'm going to be wrong, and my mixed condition model isn't worth anything. But I just don't see how professionals don't light this place up, in my very uneducated opinion. I just see lots of low scores. So with that, we'll go to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of the rankings for the ISCO this week. Now, normally I have 3 criteria in my rankings. I only have 2 this week because course value is how well that player has played that course. Well, Hurstbourne's brand new, so this entire section is blank. I only left the column in there to explain this point. But since no one has seen Hurstbourne Country Club, or at least in competitive rounds, everyone's on equal footing. So my rankings are based on 2 criteria this week. Fantasy National Rank, which is based off the mixed condition model we just talked about, the metrics and percentages, filters that we used. And then we are playing DFS. We're trying to find unique options off of our fellow contestants. So projected ownerships, and these are from Gabe. I reached out to Gabe today, asked him to take a quick look at the ISCO. He normally doesn't do anything for the alternate field events. So I'm just very appreciative that he took the time to do some calculations for the ISCO. These are his projected ownerships, and they're based on a mathematical formula. So I am quite interested to see how well it does on these alternate field events. It's been pretty darn solid for main events like the Scottish, the Open Championship, or when you just have one tournament a week. So I am interested to see how this formula he uses does in terms of these alternate field events, how well it performs. But long story short, those are his projected ownerships. So the more unique a player is, the more they're going to rise. My rankings for the ISCO, Ricky Castillo mathematically is the number 1 player. You see he is getting helped tremendously by the fact that he is so very unique off of these other 3. I would not put Ricky Castillo first, but he did rate 5th for the numbers, or by the numbers. He's just rising because of his uniqueness. Rico Hoey 2nd, Cam Champ 3rd, Kevin Roy 4th, and Thomas Rosenmiller 5th. 7,200 Thomas Rosenmiller. Somebody that was a little bit of a shock to me, but at 5% and rated 8th, you can see why he rated so high. The rest of my top 10, Stephen Fisk, Michael Thorbjornsen, Ben Coles, Chris Ventura, and Will Gordon. Again, I said this last night, I said this Sunday night, I don't collect DP World Tour stats. So that's why everything's just blank here on these players. I just collect PGA Tour stats. So if you're wanting a deep dive or more information on DP World Tour players, I'm not going to be the person to go to, and I'm comfortable admitting that. I'd rather admit that than try to give you a bullshit answer from the viewer. That way you can go and find the information you need this week. So anyway, there's my rankings. Let's just very quickly go through the price board, see where at least Gabe thinks the general public is going to coalesce on these ownerships and how we might be able to maneuver around them. In the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, kind of unique. We have 3 players, but 2 of them at the same price. Thorbjornsen 10-4, Grio 10-2, Jackson Koivun 10-2. In the 10Ks, I'm going to play quite a bit of Thorbjornsen. He's probably going to be the most projected, or he's going to be the most owned player on the slate, probably. I won't be able to get away from that chalk, but I'm not going to use a whole lot of Thorbjornsen. I'm actually not in the 10Ks for this tournament, but if I am, the lineups that I am coming into the 10Ks, I prefer Thorbjornsen. I'll use Grio a little bit. I am a little bit worried about his putter. Yes, Thorbjornsen's putter is kind of bad too on bent, but Grio's just notoriously not very good as a putter. You see the distance he lacks quite a bit. So these guys are pretty darn close. Thorbjornsen actually was number 1 by the numbers. So he's just getting hurt because he's very popular. So I'd much prefer, or I prefer Thorbjornsen over Grio. I will play them both, and I want no part of Jackson Koivun. Moving down to the 9s, Kevin Roy is going to be very popular. Again, very frustrating because I'm going to be playing a whole lot of Kevin Roy. I played him last week. He played very well. I'm going to ride that train again. Rico Hoey, I want to be cautious about, but man, he's one of these players that doesn't have even a light green statistic across. I mean, everything is just solid for him. He plays extremely well when it's easy. See his performance at the John Deere. So I'm going to use a little bit of Rico Hoey. I probably shouldn't, but I am. Hubbard's fine. Going to be popular. He's fine. Not my favorite. I'm not going to play any of Bo Hostler or Vincent Whaley. These are 2 complete full fades. If they play well, I lose. But I don't want any part of these 2, particularly because I have so much emphasis in the ball striking, and they are much more about the putting. You see Vince Whaley's the number 1 putter on bent in this field. Instead, I'll go to Patrick Fishburne, who seems to be the pivot in this area. And I'm going to play a whole lot of Cameron Champ, just like Kevin Roy last week, and he performed well. Cameron Champ performed very well last week, and I'm going to ride that train again. If his driver stays hot, if his putter stays hot, Cameron Champ's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And so I'm going to play all the Cameron Champ I can handle, because he's traditionally not a very good putter. Yet here he is. He's gained in 4 straight top 30s. Off the tee is always his big thing, but his irons too are hot right now. So I'm going to continue to ride the hot hand with Cameron Champ. Even if he is popular, I'm pretty confident I can find some uniqueness lower in the price board. So in the 9s, I'm going to play a lot of Roy. It sucks, but it is what it is. Champ, I'm hoping, isn't terribly popular, but I'm sure he will be. And I will sprinkle some Patrick Fishburne. Hubbard's fine. He's going to be very popular, but he's fine. I'm just not excited about it because I'm much higher on Roy and Cameron Champ. And I shouldn't be high on Rico Hoey, but I'm going to play him. Moving down into the 8s, take a strong look at Chris Ventura. Another one of these players that doesn't have a even good statistic. They're all great to elite for this field. Rated 6th, top 20 irons, good off the tee when it's easy, good putter on bent. There's a lot to like here with Chris Ventura. So take a long look at Chris Ventura at 8,900. Because I don't think he's going to be as popular as Gabe thinks. I could be wrong with that, but I don't think he's going to be that popular. And that's really kind of it in the upper 8s for sure. Ricky Castillo technically rated out first for me. He's getting helped by the fact that he's unique. He always rates well for me, but he doesn't have a lot of success to show for it, so I'm quite cautious about Ricky Castillo. Carson Young, Joseph Bramlett, Stephen Fisk, all these guys have something that is bothersome. Like Carson Young doesn't give himself a lot of opportunities, doesn't have a lot of distance. Joseph Bramlett, his irons have been a little cold, and he is an atrocious putter. Stephen Fisk has been great with the irons, but doesn't convert. Kind of like a Joel Damon, seemingly. Also a bad putter, seemingly. So all three of these guys have warts, but I will sprinkle them into lineups very sparingly. Moving down into the sevens, Chan Kim, I'm going to play a lot of. I know he's not in good form right now, but this guy loves birdie fests. He goes low in birdie fests. He just plays extremely well when it's easy. So I'm going to play quite a bit of Chan Kim, and I'm going to play quite a bit of Hayden Springer, despite the fact that his irons haven't been good lately. I like the putter on bent. He's got plenty of distance, which I think is going to be a huge factor here. Second, and birdies are better when it's easy. There's a lot to like here with Hayden Springer, even if he has a couple of pretty ugly warts. So these two I'm going to play in the upper sevens, and that's really kind of it in the upper sevens. I know Adam Schenk ranks 12th. I just can't get excited about an Adam Schenk, so I'm not going to play him. Lonto Griffin rates really high. Yeah. Kind of like Adam Schenk, I just can't get excited about Lonto Griffin. So instead, in the mid-sevens, I'm going to Jackson Suber, even if he is more owned than Lonto Griffin. I kept talking about Detroit and the Rocket Classic. Well, Jackson Suber played extremely well at Detroit. In the top 10. He putt well, which that's Bent and Poa Annua, so it's not a direct correlation, but he generally plays his best when it's easy. Like, he doesn't like it when it's difficult. I don't think this is going to be difficult. So I'm going to play quite a bit of Jackson Suber, thinking this plays very similarly to the Rocket Classic with a lot of shorter par fours and some longer par fours, because his proximities... Oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go to the actual Rocket Classic. The Rocket is really a lot about these shorter lengths, like the wedges and the 200 plus, because of all the par 5s, 175 and 200. Like, really, this is kind of a dead zone. These two ranges here is kind of a dead zone. And Jackson Suber is fantastic at those proximities. Like, if we go to proximity just very, very quickly, we sort on the 200 plus. There's Springer. Jackson Suber's 10th. Suber's actually first in terms of total proximity, but he's 10th, 200 plus, 6th, 175 to 200, first in the wedges, 75 to 100. Really, his only bad range is 150 to 175, and I don't see that range really playing a big factor this week at Hurstbourne. So that's kind of the big reason why I'm pretty high on Jackson Suber. So I'll play him in the mid-sevens. Ben Cole's rated in the top 10. Good with the ball striking, but putter's been fairly bad on bent. Not a whole lot of distance, so I'm not as excited as maybe 8th would suggest. And then in the low sevens, again, I was surprised, but I'm going to play a lot of this Thomas Rosenmiller. Look at his stats here. 8th in approach, 10th off the tee, top 15 in opportunities, top 15 in distance. Now, the putter hasn't been good on bent, but I'm playing the ball striking, and his numbers really stand out ball striking wise. So that's where I'm at with Thomas Rosenmiller. If if we take a look at his page just really, really quickly, like his off the tee is stellar this year. He hasn't lost since the Amex back in January. Irons, okay. Like he lost at the CJ Cup, lost at the Valero, but his big thing clearly is off the tee. And I think that's going to be a big factor this week. I also don't think he's going to, lose 5 on the greens. If he does, I'm in trouble. But I'm going to play a lot of Thomas Rosenmiller, thinking that this is a really, really good course fit for him. And yeah, that's really kind of how I see the price board. Any DP World Tour players that I recommend are going to be basically name value only because of what they've done in the past. And they're all basically in the 6Ks. I will give a slight mention to Fabrizio Zanotti. He's a little bit older. He hadn't putt bent very well because that's his only metric. Everything else is blank here. But, a few years ago, he was actually top 50 in the world. He was playing really, really well on the DP World Tour. So, in a very low quality field, I think Zanotti is probably a worthwhile dart to throw. And then the DP World Tour players that I'm going to use in the 6Ks, just go through them really quickly. Maximilian Kiefer, German, very good putter. So I'm hoping the ball striking will come around. Kiefer at 6,900. 6,600, the one I'm probably the highest on is Marcus Kinnolt. He played okay in the Scottish Open last year, but he has been over here to play in the Barbasol and played fairly well. So I do like Marcus Kinnolt, also a decent putter on bent. And the last one I'll mention is Shubhanka Sharma. I used him a lot at the Scottish and the Open Championship last year to great success. Now, he's not having a very good year, seemingly, if he's over here in the alternate field event. But I do think the talent is there. I'm just hoping he'll find it this week in a much weaker field. So that's how I see the price board. No tiers contest, so we'll try and make some lineups here. We'll make maybe 1 or 2 what we think are going to be chalky lineups, and then how I've been building my lineups this week. Most common player seems to be Thorbjornsen, so we'll start there. Now, it looks like, at least per Gabe's calculations, mathematical calculations, we have a 4% Zach Blair, but really doesn't look like many players or many of our fellow contestants are in the 6Ks, and in fact, we're at 12.5% on Carson Young, so they're not going to be able to bottom themselves out at Carson Young. So instead, let's take a look here. Maybe Adam Shank, 8.5%. Harry Higgs, 7%. We'll try Higgs. But you see all this ownership is coalesced at the very top of the price board. They'll go Higgs. 8.5 was Adam Shank. Still too much for Carson Young. So another, like Chan Kim, Carson Young, and then 86 is S.H. Kim. Not enough there. So really, it looks like, at least per Gabe's calculations, like Thorbjornsen, I don't want to call him a pivot, but this might be the contrarian strategy, because it doesn't seem like many of our fellow contestants are comfortable going into the even mid 7s. So if they build a more balanced lineup, they'll go like Kevin Roy and Cameron Champ and Ventura, Carson Young maybe, and then fill in 2 low 7s like Harry Higgs maybe, or Yeah, maybe not Ventura. Go like Carson Young here. Yeah, this is more like it. Chan Kim at 8.5%. Adam Shank. And then 75. Like Suber's at 8.5%. He might be in here. This might be a fairly chalky style of balanced lineup. Again, I just don't know how they're building their Thor Bjornsson lineups, considering there isn't much attention being paid to the ISCO, and it doesn't seem like the ones who are down here very much. So, a couple ways you can do this to get off the not necessarily get off the chalk, but to try and create unique lineups. The first is a stars and scrubs approach. I gave you a couple of 6K names down there if you're willing to walk into the dregs of a 6K alternate field event, but I do like Marcus Kennelt quite a bit at 6,600, Maximilian Kiefer 6,900, Sharma at 6,300 if you're really needing some price savings, but I'm going to go with Kennelt. And then even though Grillo is quite a bit more projected, or quite a bit less projected owned than Thor Bjornsson, I'm just much more confident in Thor. Like, you could go Grillo here and get really, really unique, if I could spell his name correctly. You could get really unique like this, doing like two tens. I did it once or twice, but I didn't do it very often because I like a lot of the 9Ks. Like, for me, I could go Patrick Fishburne, who seems to be a pivot off of some of this other chalk like Champ, Ventura, especially off the chalk of Hoey and Roy in the upper nines. So you can go like Fishburne, find an 8 that you like. Maybe it is Christopher Ventura. Despite me being cautious about him, like I'm still going to use Ricky Castillo. Even though he seems like he's probably a little bit more popular for his area of the price board, like Chan Kim makes a lot of sense. And then 7,700, I'm not there much. Instead, I would go like Jackson Suber. So this is one way you can do it, a traditional stars and scrubs if you're willing to go into the 6Ks. It's a little dangerous, especially in an alternate field event, but I don't think many of our fellow contestants are going to the 6K, so this should be fairly unique. You've got the tournament favorite. You've got a guy who's been playing very well lately. Suber played or top 10 of course, and I think is going to play very similarly to this. So I like this style of lineup. You're just taking a chance on Kennelt, and maybe there's somebody else down in the sixes you like. Just substitute them in there. But the way I've been going about it mostly, I've been getting greedy in a different way. I really like Kevin Roy this week, so I'm going to be using him. I would like to use Cameron Champ, so I will do that. And then my uniqueness has been in Rosenmiller. So if Rosenmiller doesn't play well, I will lose. But at 5% and rated out 5th in my rankings, I'm going to be... Overweight's not even the right term. Like, I'm just essentially all in on Rosenmiller. And because I'm bottoming out at 72, like, it gives me a lot of freedom in here. I really like Jackson Suber. I really like Hayden Springer. Chan Kim, if I want to leave a lot of money on the table and be even more unique. Ricky Castillo, Carson Young, sprinkle in some Joseph Bramlett. Or maybe sometimes I'll go Kevin Roy and Rico Hoey and skip Cameron Champ and Ventura. Throw in Stephen Fisk or Chan Kim into this. Like, those are the lineups that I've been building this week. So my core for the ISCO they obviously won't all fit price wise. Hoey, Cameron Champ, Ventura, Shane Kim, Hayden Springer, Suber, and it's all being held together by Rosenmiller here at 72. So that's my core for the ISCO. Obviously, you're not able to fit. You might be able to fit in like 5 of these guys into a lineup, maybe. But most of the time it's like 4. And then I've been mixing and matching everywhere else. Like sometimes if I don't use Kevin, like a lot of times it's either Kevin Roy or Rico Hoey. Generally not both. I've done a couple of lineups with both of them in there, but generally the decision point is Roy or Hoey. The decision point is Champ or Ventura. I'm just playing them each because I can do so with Rosenmiller. I can do so with Springer and Suber. So I've got a lot of I'm extremely overweight at the low and mid 7s, other than like Kevin Roy and Champ, who I'm overweight on. So that's it for the ISCO this week. Thanks for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel by liking the videos, commenting, subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Had a fantastic, blistering John Deere. We're going to try to keep the momentum for the double tournament week this week for the ISCO and the Scottish. Reminder, the DFS Tactics show for the Scottish Open will be tomorrow night at 9, and it'll be, basically 3 or 4 hours before lock. So all of your last-minute information for the Scottish, I will have for you. Thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made this week for the ISCO Championship, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the ISCO Championship, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Scottish Open DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.